The Jimmy Timmy Power Hour premiered 20 years ago in 2004, and it's taking all the power in me not to freak out at how quickly time is going by. I was thinking about this special recently and realized JTPH is one of the only shows to do a true crossover in a sense that Timmy is in Jimmy's world and vice versa. So I decided it was time to relive the glory days and see if Jimmy Timmy Power Hour is the one true crossover. Let's get it. The movie starts in Dimsdale and Timmy Turner is in class getting ready for the science fair. Everyone's showing off their projects and everyone's got something lit to show off. Seeing all the projects, Timmy gets extremely upset that he never finished his project. He never even started it, to be fair. Timmy sneaks out of class and Crocker follows him. He knows Crocker's onto him, so he tells his fairies to leave so they don't get caught, and they give him an auto poofer so that he can poof back to his bedroom at any time. He then wishes to be at the best lab in Dimsdale, and he ends up being at AJ's lab. Timmy realizes he can't steal any of these projects because AJ would recognize it as his own science. So he poofs home and asks his fairies to send him to the best lab in the entire universe. Cut to Jimmy Neutron upgrading Goddard against his will, and Timmy poofs in. Jimmy doesn't even notice Timmy poofing in, and Timmy ignores Jimmy entirely and just starts going through his shit. Jimmy catches Timmy in the stupid hat and gets pissed. He presses Timmy, asking him how he got in the lab, and Timmy says it's his lab now, and he just keeps going through all of Jimmy's shit. Timmy gets sucked into a bottomless cube, and Jimmy accidentally poofs himself to Timmy's bedroom using the poofer from Cosmo and Wanda. Timmy pops out of the cube and couldn't care less that Jimmy is gone and keeps going through his lab. We then get a really cool intro with both theme songs fighting for the spotlight. I always remember this as a kid and I always loved it. Timmy's still going through the lab, fucking with everything he can find, and nothing seems to impress him. Even the cheese gun? Come on, Timmy. A cheese gun? Timmy notices Goddard and thinks it's a dog video game system and then tries to install his copy of Decimator Crush the Planet into Goddard. What the hell? Timmy gets distracted waiting for the update and notices that his poofer is gone. Sheen and Carl show up and Timmy is pissed. Sheen thinks Timmy is just Jimmy after an experiment gone wrong. Who can blame him? He says they can only hang out with him if they show him how to use all of Jimmy's inventions. Carl, Sheen, and Timmy then start messing around with all the inventions that Jimmy would never let them touch, and I love the reference to the Jimmy Neutron movie with the giant bubble Sheen is in. Jimmy's mom comes out back and doesn't believe that Timmy is not Jimmy. They end up hypnotizing Jimmy's mom, and Timmy forces her to believe that she's Mighty Mom, a dust-fighting superhero. Carl says that maybe they should be careful, but Timmy says bullshit to that and rides off on a hoverboard. Meanwhile, Goddard is halfway done updating and things are not looking good for him. Timmy crashes into Sydney and Libby, and they're the first people who could tell that he is not actually Jimmy. Sydney tells Timmy how to ride the hoverboard, and he asks her for help on the science project, and they walk off holding hands. It's that easy. Meanwhile, Goddard finishes updating, and he's ripped and ready to kill, and his first target is Jimmy's dad. He moves in and tells him that his future is canceled. Cut to Jimmy freaking out about being 2D. He's worried about getting home to take care of Goddard and finish the update. He's trying to find a manual for the poofer to get home, but only finds useless shit like comic books. Cosmo and Wanda poof in and freak out at Jimmy and his swirly, fudgy hair. Jimmy thinks they're just holograms, and they just let him believe it because no one else can know that Timmy has fairies. Timmy's dad busts in and tells Jimmy it's time to go to the science fair. He doesn't believe that Jimmy is not Timmy and then pays Vicky to force Jimmy to go to school. He's literally a terrible dad. He should just take Timmy to school himself. Timmy's fairies can't help Jimmy get home because they can only grant wishes for Timmy. Meanwhile, Jimmy hopes that one of the science fair projects can help him get home. No one in class actually believes that he's Jimmy, and they all just think he's Timmy. They're all dumb as hell. Jimmy gets his first F in his entire life. Then Timmy's bully tries to beat him, but he can't get past his hair. What a dummy. Jimmy shows off the the poofer, saying Timmy is a genius for making this invention, then poofs himself back to Timmy's bedroom. Crocker freaks out and knows for a fact that Fairly Odd Parents made that device and sets out to get the poofer. Jimmy is confused why the poofer only takes him back to Timmy's bedroom and nowhere else, so he finds a Game Buddy on the floor and combines it with the poofer to be able to travel to any universe he pleases. But just before Jimmy can poof anywhere, Crocker busts into Timmy's home, that is a home invasion, snatches the poofer, then takes them all to Fairy World. Jimmy is confused why everyone is upset about what just happened. He doesn't think any of this is real and that the fairies and the entire world is just a computer simulation. Cut to Timmy at the candy bar with Sydney. She's trying to convince herself that Timmy is actually a genius and he's trying to keep up with the act. Jimmy's friends bust in to ask Timmy to help save Jimmy's dad from ripped Goddard. But Timmy's just excited that Goddard is finished updating and watches and smiles as Jimmy's dad is almost getting murdered. Timmy then reveals that every time Goddard kills, he'll get bigger and stronger. Timmy then fucks off with Sydney and leaves Jimmy's dad to die. Goddard runs off to kill some more people in the city, and Sheen, Carl, and Libby go after him. Meanwhile, Timmy is turning a squirrel into a bat, and Sydney teaches him how to use this weird remote thing that merges creatures. Sydney then asks Timmy to use a mind phone on him to hear his deepest, most personal thoughts. During all this, the ice cream man crashes his car, and Goddard counts that as a kill for some reason and levels up, and now he's basically unstoppable. He targets Jimmy's friends and they flee for their lives. Sydney puts the mind phone next to Timmy's head, and he's actually thinking about celebrity steel cage monkey boxing, and I need to see that show right now. Sydney then says she wouldn't actually like Timmy if he wasn't smart, and then Jimmy's friends interrupt them and beg for help. Goddard shows up and burns them all alive, and then they flee some more. Timmy wants to get back home to ask his fairies for help and tries to find his poofer, but while he's trying to find it, Goddard bends down and fucking eats him. Timmy is in Goddard's body, breathing in toxic fumes, and Sydney starts talking to him over a radio that's in the mini laser. Sydney tells him to use the laser to cut the rail he's hanging on, and he does it and makes it safely into a vent. Sydney then tries to guide Timmy to Goddard's power core to shut him down. Meanwhile, Goddard is trying to destroy the soda factory, which will absolutely drown the town in soda and everyone will die. Sydney tells Timmy to try to have a brain blast to save them all, but he simply can't do it. Sydney then tells him to pull the red switch in the terminal box to shut down Goddard, but the box is locked shut and the laser is dead. So he uses his teeth to bite through the metal lock and shut down Goddard just before he drowns the entire town in soda. Timmy, I'd love to see your dentist bill after that. Sydney reconnects with the crew to celebrate, and she's convinced that Timmy was just pretending not to know what to do, so Sydney would get a chance to solve the problem herself, and then she kisses him. Timmy's got that riz. Goddard shrinks back to normal and shows a feed of Jimmy calling in, and Jimmy's friends are so upset that Timmy isn't actually Jimmy. Timmy tells Jimmy that Crocker sucked all of them into a computer simulation, then reveals they're in Fairy World. Jimmy really thinks Fairy World is a computer world. It's crazy. Crocker decides he wants to take the VIP tour and uses the poofer to get on the VIP bus. Jimmy is refusing to help because he doesn't believe any of this is real, and Timmy is rightfully pissed. Jimmy then hangs up on Timmy. During the VIP tour, Crocker learns about the fairy armory with god-powered fairy weapons, and then learns if he takes down the giant wand that everyone in Fairy World will lose magic and be defenseless. He then poofs himself inside the armory and loots up. Jimmy realizes that Crocker left with the poofer, and he's actually pissed off, and his only motivation to stop Crocker is so he could get the poofer and go back home. Meanwhile, Crocker knocks over the giant wand with ease, and everything goes gray. Jimmy and the fairies use their last amount of magic to poof to Crocker, and Jimmy builds a magnet to pull the poofer out of Crocker's hands. Crocker is turning Fairy World into Crocker World, and I think he's lost the plot. He just wanted to prove fairies exist, and now he's trying to rule them. Jimmy is about to take the poofer and ditch Cosmo and Wanda because they're just computer simulations, so it doesn't matter what happens to them. Timmy calls Jimmy, and they argue about the fairies being real or not real. Jimmy keeps saying it's all a computer game and they're just holograms, and doesn't get why Timmy cares about them. Timmy then points out that Goddard himself is just a computer and that Jimmy really cares about him, and that seems to get through to him a little bit. He uses the poofer Crocker to go to the science fair and find anything useful and starts to build his own device to save the day and ends up making a giant robot fighting suit, which is fucking dope. Crocker is storming the fairy capital building and Jimmy is in there waiting for him with the suit. They beef it out for a bit and Crocker is fighting with magic and Jimmy's machine is simply no match. Crocker almost instantly disarms Jimmy, then tries to murder him on the spot, but it turns out it was just a Jimmy robot being piloted by Cosmo and Wanda. Still an attempted murder. During all this, Jimmy was actually fixing the giant wand the entire time and he figures out it just simply wasn't plugged in. Crocker keeps trying to murder Jimmy, but he makes it to the plug in time and restores the giant wand, giving magic back to Fairy World. Even after the big wand is restored, Crocker keeps trying to murder everyone, but Jimmy grabs a wand and sends Crocker through a bodily terror journey until he surrenders. Jimmy still thinks this is all just a simulation and doesn't understand what he just did to Crocker. Jorgen then shows up as a dog and starts mauling Crocker so hard that his memory becomes wiped. Timmy calls Jimmy through the poofing device and makes the wish that they're both back in their hometowns. Jimmy is confused what wishing will do for them, and then Jimmy and Timmy finally meet in a crazy universal gap. They share a touching moment where they understand each other as they change back to their universes. Sydney pops into the portal one last time to ask Timmy to wait for her. Wait for when? She's gonna be in a different universe her whole life. What does she mean? And they say goodbye. Cut to the science fair and Crocker has PTSD, so the principal has to host it instead. And Timmy is still upset because he still didn't finish a project. Jimmy figured out interdimensional gifting and sends Goddard into Timmy's universe so he could use him as a project. Timmy gets an A and first prize in the science fair, and the movie comes to a close and the credits start to roll. So after the hour has been powered, I definitely do still like JTPH. It's charming seeing these two worlds collide, and Jimmy and Timmy have good chemistry when they're together. And I'm hard pressed to find another crossover that actually has the characters switching universes. It's definitely worth a watch if you're down for the vibe. The Fairly Odd Parents have had quite a few specials premiere during its runtime on Nickelodeon, and one of them that always remained in the back of my head was Abra-Catastrophe. I remember the muffin, the planet of the apes, but not much else. And yet I vividly remember this special so well at the same time. So I decided it was time for a rewatch to see if Abra-Catastrophe is even any good. So the movie starts with this Star Wars type battle, and Timmy gets his hand fucking cut off, and Cosmo is revealed to be Darth Vader. Timmy falls, potentially to his death, and Wanda transforms him into the Arachna Kid, and he swings right into fighting the Green Goblin, who keeps telling Timmy to tell his secret. The Green Goblin is about to get Timmy, and they're poofed into Jurassic Park. Timmy is about to get cooked by T-Rex Wanda and peels out of there, recreating an iconic scene from Jurassic Park. Wanda asks Timmy what his secret is as she's chasing him, and Wanda knocks Timmy's car off a cliff, and Timmy falls down the cliff only to be eaten alive by the dinosaur. He freaks out from the stomach of the beast and poofs back home to reveal a surprise fairyversary party set up for Timmy. And there's actually a lot of discourse online about how this fits into the Fairly Odd Parents timeline. This actually completely breaks the timeline of the Fairly Odd Parents. Timmy should have had his first fairyversary years ago and they skipped it, and now he's having his second first one. It's really confusing. It turns out Cosmo and Wanda were asking Timmy what his secret was to see if he would reveal that he has fairies. Jorgen's there and he freaks out at Timmy's butterfly net, and Wanda explains that nets are the one object fairies' magic have no effect on. The party gets going, and meanwhile Crocker is driving his pedo van down the street disguised as an ice cream truck. Sus, very sus, to track down Timmy's fairies. During all this, the fairies actually stop the party to explain that most kids have lost their fairies by the first year, and go on to explain that a kid can lose their fairies if anyone else learns that they have fairies, and they'll be gone forever. Which is kind of a bummer. Why not just let Timmy enjoy his party? Also, this kind of retcons Channel Chasers a little bit, because in Channel Chasers they explain that most kids outgrow their fairies and don't need them anymore, and now they're saying that most kids don't keep their fairies past the first year because they can't keep them a secret. So what's the truth? Wanda tells Timmy that she poofed him up a magic doorknob that will make anyone who touches it forget what they were doing to help keep his parents out so they can enjoy the party. Then there's a crazy ass music number that sounds kind of like School's Out the musical, and I'm loving it. There was a lot of work put into this musical number. You can really tell there was a lot of effort. It sounds very catchy. So why the fuck isn't this a musical? Putting a song at the beginning of the episode special makes it seem like it's going to be a musical, and I kept waiting for the next song to pop up, and it never did. So the party ends, and Timmy's going over all the magic gifts he received, and Jorgen pops in and gives Timmy one final gift, a magic muffin. Whoever eats the muffin can grant an entirely rule-free wish. Kinda dangerous. Why not just make it so Timmy's the only one who can use it? It's a fairy product. They must have produced it themselves. They must have baked it up with magic. Why not just magically make it only work for Timmy? I don't know. The second Jorgen pops out the muffin, Crocker's tracker instantly picks it up as a muffin-shaped object also, and he tracks it to Timmy's house and prepares a professional net to capture his fairies and steal the muffin. Meanwhile, Cosmo and Wanda then go into the backstory of how they were assigned to Timmy in the first place. Timmy's mom wants to go out, but Timmy's dad doesn't want to hire a babysitter out of guilt of missing his childhood. They eventually decide to tell Timmy they're traveling to Africa to give those children his leftovers. He cries at the thought of being left alone as his father records his misery, and Timmy finds a flyer for a babysitter service that he calls himself, who is no other than Vicky, and Vicky instantly tries to burn Timmy alive and ruin his entire collection of childhood videotapes as soon as she's hired. That's crazy. At least get a foot in the door first. And yet she still never got fired. Even more evidence showing that Mr. and Mrs. Turner are psychotic. They're psychopathic. It's ridiculous. Also, insane manipulation to pull on a child. And if I'm gonna give him credit, Mr. Turner didn't want to go through with the plan, but Mrs. Turner forced him to follow through with it, making her the worst parent by far. But maybe that's because Timmy's dad never did anything for him to help around the house, and she had to cook and clean and take care of Timmy full time, so she more so wanted time off. I don't know. And that is how Cosmo and Wanda got assigned to Timmy. And Timmy actually forgot this story, and he is rightfully pissed hearing it back from Cosmo and Wanda. And now he thinks his parents are nothing but dirty liars, which pretty much they are. Timmy says, "I wish my parents didn't lie to me," in a kind of sarcastic tone, not really as a real wish, but Cosmo and Wanda grant the wish anyway. Timmy confronts his parents at breakfast and asks if they ever lied to him. They say yes unwillingly and get stressed by the loss of control for their own body and run off. I would too. And let me just say that Timmy's breakfast is absolutely unacceptable. It's just a slice of bread. There's no butter. It's not toast. It's just a slice of bread. It's nothing else. Timmy is on his way to school, and Crocker is still outside his house selling ice cream out of his van when he is surrounded by an entire community of children trying to buy ice cream. And yet Timmy's already late for school. Not only are all these kids going to be late for school, but Crocker himself is going to be late for school. Timmy makes it to school and is acting all nihilistic because all adults lie to him, and AJ actually brought his pet monkey to school, and Crocker rolls up late and shoots a fork in the principal's ass trying to steal Timmy's muffin. That's assault. I'm pretty sure is it a felony? Timmy runs off and drops the muffin, and a random muffin man finds it, eats a bite, then wishes for mouthwash because the muffin tasted like shit. He puts the muffin on a tray and rolls it away. So this jackass is trying to sell a muffin that he already ate. That's a violation of some health codes. It's gotta be. Timmy wants to go get the muffin back right away, but is forcibly shoved into class by an entire riot of kids. I don't know why these kids are so excited to go to school. I don't get it. Meanwhile, Timmy's parents watch old home videos to see if they really lied to Timmy all of the time. And they lied on the first clip of the very first tape that they decided to watch. Back at school, Crocker is eating chalk, and Timmy wishes for his muffin back, but his fairies can't poof it back to him because the muffin magic is more powerful than the magic of a fairy. Class finally ends, but Timmy is chained to his desk by Crocker so that Timmy can't beat him to the muffin. This is false imprisonment on a child. This is a crime, and I do believe it's a felony as well. Timmy wishes to be broken free and then breaks into the lunchroom to find that it's Muffin Monday. AJ thought it was Monkey Monday. That's why he brought Bippy the monkey. Timmy's trying to find his muffin before Crocker can, and it's not looking good. But Timmy starts a food fight at the last second, and the muffin ends up being thrown. Timmy frees AJ's monkey Bippy so that he can have fun in the food fight, and the muffin ends up going to the monkey. The monkey takes a big old bite of the muffin, spits it up, then starts levitating. He's making a monkey wish, and part 1 comes to a close. As far as part 1 goes, not much really happened. Timmy got his muffin, he lost his muffin, and that's about it. I mean, yeah, the monkey got the muffin, but we don't even get get to see what his magic wish was. Maybe part 2 will get a little bit spicier. So as part 2 begins, the entire world is being transformed into a jungle banana kingdom, and in the wide shots of planet Earth, it looks like all the water is turning green and being removed from Earth entirely. That's not sustainable for life. Timmy is rightfully upset, so Jorgen pops in and rips Cosmo and Wanda back to Fairy World, and now Timmy is forced to deal with this himself. Over in Fairy World, Cosmo and Wanda are actually in Fairy Court, being charged with the monkey getting the muffin and changing the entire world. Jorgen then brings out the rules and explains that all fairies must be assigned to the dominant species on Earth, which is now monkeys. And then a cute monkey-themed intro starts to play, and it's adorable. Cosmo and Wanda are now Bippy's fairies, and they're pissed about it. Meanwhile, Timmy's parents are trying to figure out how many times they lied to Timmy, and they're up to 5,000, completely unaware of the Jungle Kingdom overtaking their world. Timmy wakes up in a panic and realizes he doesn't have his fairies anymore. He decides to find the muffin, but needs to go to school first. Priorities, right, Timmy? He decides to try to steal some gear from Crocker to help him track down the muffin, and during class, Crocker is ranting about wanting to rule the entire Earth, all of man, and all of apes. The ape overlords get mad and carry Crocker off for disobeying their society, and presumably are going to torture him. Then Timmy sneaks to Crocker's lair and finds the magic tracker and goes after Cosmo and Wanda, and realizes they're in Chimpsdale, the forbidden city for humans to go into. Timmy throws caution to the wind and decides to infiltrate Chimpsdale. He's getting closer to the muffin, but Bippy runs off with the muffin and Timmy gives chase. He tries asking Cosmo and Wanda for a wish, but they can't help him because they belong to the monkey now. Timmy goes for the muffin and snatches it away from Bippy, but instantly gets caught by a security ape and loses the muffin. Timmy ends up in a security den with Crocker and everyone else who was caught in Chimpsdale. Bippy and the fairies are there watching as Timmy gets taken away by the apes, and they go after him, but Bippy loses the muffin and Crocker gets it. But luckily, he's not scheduled to eat until March. Timmy is about to be dissected alive by the apes, and Bippy and the fairies break in to help, but easily get caught by the apes. Bippy wishes for everything to go back to normal just before an ape uses Cosmo to forcibly cut Timmy's skull open while he's still conscious. Once everything turns back to normal, they all realize that Crocker and the muffin are both gone. Meanwhile, Crocker takes a chomp of the muffin, spits it up, then starts electrifying. He wishes he could capture a fairy godparent, then gets a net that instantly catches Wanda for him. She sacrifices herself to save Cosmo and Timmy. Crocker then runs off with Wanda, and news of this spreads back to Jorgen in Fairy World. He then says no more fairies can be on Earth to eliminate the risk of others being captured. Meanwhile, Timmy is trying to find Crocker and save Wanda, and figures Crocker will be abusing students at school. So Crocker actually is at school, so he's very predictable, in a magic muffin suit and harnessing Wanda's powers. He freezes a couple students to death, then turns others into toilets. Crazy. Timmy busts in to save the students and lures Crocker away from class, which is pretty selfless, especially for Timmy Turner. Timmy then wishes for a shield, and Cosmo does it well, and Timmy figures out he needs to fight magic with magic. He then heads home to get all of the magical items he received from his Fairyversary gifts, as Crocker melts the entire school into a castle, then attempts to blow up the entire fucking planet from the looks of it. During all this, Timmy's parents are up to 14,013 lies they've told to Timmy so far, which is astronomically high. Timmy makes it home as Crocker's magic is right behind him and he dives under his bed. Timmy and Cosmo made it into Santa's sack just in time, and they were protected from Crocker's evil magic wave. Then Timmy gears up with all his magical fairy weapons and is ready to take on Crocker, save Wanda, and get back the muffin. And part 2 comes to a close. Honestly, I didn't really love part 2 that much either. I feel like we didn't get to spend that much time in Chimpsdale. We didn't really get to learn that much about it. It was more blink and you'll miss it type speed, but maybe they can stick the landing. Maybe the ending will leave my jaw on the floor. We'll just have to watch part 3. Part 3 begins with Crocker chilling in his castle, hassling Wanda for no reason, then poofs to the hourly bowing down ceremony, and the entire world is presumably bowing down to him. Crocker uses Wanda's magic to make it rain shrimp puffs, and everyone cries in agony as if they're being stabbed to death. Meanwhile, Timmy is in a sick fit and calls out to Crocker in front of everyone. He reflects a wish back at Crocker and brings him down to his level. Crocker can't land a single hit on Timmy and actually turns a few people into shrimp puffs. I'm considering this a kill. Timmy's in these comedy glasses and Crocker just simply doesn't recognize him. They keep fighting until Crocker breaks Timmy's magic mirror. Then Cosmo shows up, roided up, and punches the shit out of Crocker. He used his favorite video, 5-second massive pecs. I need a copy of that, Cosmo. Just before Cosmo beats Crocker, he gets distracted and gets sucked into Crocker's staff with Wanda. Timmy steps in and gets sucked into a magic portal conjured up by Crocker, and Timmy's floating through this vast emptiness of space and almost dies of oxygen loss until his magic glasses transform into a space helmet. These shows almost never have characters need oxygen in space, so it's pretty alarming to see Timmy almost die of oxygen loss. I don't know, it's crazy. Crocker shows up to battle Timmy in space, and Timmy jumps through the asteroid belt. He smashes Crocker's helmet out with an asteroid, and his face starts to get sucked out of his head, so he portals them away to Egypt, of all places. Crocker starts using the elements against Timmy since his magic won't work against him directly, and turns a Sphinx statue into a killer demon. Timmy tries throwing some egg grenades in the Sphinx's mouth, and he swallows it like it's nothing. Timmy then flies off, and the demon goes right after his ass. But Timmy uses some magic floss to take control of the beast and ride it towards Crocker. Crocker tries to fly away, but gets his ass bit out of the sky. Timmy confronts him and gets the poor Sphinx killed, which is just horrible to see. Crocker ends up sucking them both into another portal, and they end up on a subatomic level on Butch Hartman's Eraserhead, and they continue battling on top of individual atoms, and Crocker finally gets a hold of Timmy. But Timmy ends up breaking free and shoots an arrow straight through an atom. The atom splits in half and blows the entire fucking world to hell. Crocker survived the explosion using a special bubble that looks like the bubble from Mahomushi, and Timmy survived using Santa's secret sack, but gets hit by some turkeys that got roasted in the flames, and Crocker realizes it's Timmy Turner finally. Crocker then decides to hit Timmy where it hurts and go after his parents. Timmy tries grabbing onto Crocker with some floss and follows him into the portal, but Crocker snaps the floss and Timmy is thrown off away from them in the middle of transporting through the portal. He goes straight to his parents' house as soon as he can, but Crocker already has them in a bubble. Crocker threatens to transport Timmy's parents to the sun unless Timmy surrenders and finally gives up. That's fucking insane. Timmy asks for one last word with his parents before Crocker kills him, and he apologizes for getting angry with them earlier in the morning. His parents apologize as well and say that they love him. Timmy then decides to point out his fairies to his parents and points to Crocker's scepter and explains to his parents who his fairy godparents really are. Timmy's parents are instantly pissed that they still have to work for a living and that Timmy can't support them monetarily with their wishes, which rightfully so, I get it. Out of nowhere, the rules book ascends from heaven, opens, and starts to suck Cosmo and Wanda into the abyss. Timmy says he had to tell the truth about his fairies to be set free, and they get sucked into the book. The book closes and disappears. Crocker is absolutely pissed when he realizes he can't use magic anymore, and Timmy's parents completely decimate him. It looks like they're actually trying to murder him. The muffin bounces out to Timmy, and he finally gets to make a rule-free wish. He eats the entire muffin in one bite, spits it all out, and wishes Cosmo and Wanda were his fairies again. They come back, and Timmy wishes that everything was back to normal and everyone forgot that he had fairy godparents. During all this, the fairies in Fairy World all cheer and flow back into Earth, and Timmy lands back at his normal home. His parents leave him to go to work and tell the truth that they're going to spend their money on dinner tonight and not his college fund. Meanwhile, Crocker is getting put into a straitjacket at school and given a high dose of medicine. Timmy's back at home and so happy that everything is back to normal. He's about to throw out the magic forgetting doorknob when Jorgen actually shows up. He tells Timmy that Cosmo and Wanda need to be reassigned for his Kalis axe, and then he throws the doorknob at Jorgen's skull. They trick him into reassigning Cosmo and Wanda to Timmy again, and he heads back to Fairy World none the wiser. Cosmo and Wanda redo their cute introduction because they were reassigned, and they hug and share a moment of laughter with Timmy. Bippy is seen with a truck of normal muffins as the fairies in Fairy World celebrate on their way back to Earth. Crocker sees the fairy dust from his solitary confinement cell and starts to freak the fuck out as Cosmo puts him to sleep, and they all share one final laugh as the credits start to roll. Alright, let's start off by saying I'm not exactly exactly thrilled with Abra-Catastrophe as a special. I remember back when I was younger feeling like this special was kind of a big deal and that the monkeys actually posed a real threat. Like, I was genuinely afraid the monkeys would murder Timmy as a kid. But rewatching it now, it feels like we're in Chimpsdale for like 15 minutes and we barely have any room to breathe there. We don't even get to take in the environment, really. Having the conflict split between Timmy getting the muffin from Bippy and Crocker wanting the muffin made both conflicts feel kind of thin and not that important. I never really felt the weight of Timmy's mission throughout the special. Also, the random musical number in part 1 is actually pretty good and sounds like School's Out the Musical or Fairy Idol, but there's no other songs at all in the special. It's extremely jarring to put one really banger song in the beginning of a special, then have it not be a musical. Why not include it somewhere else in the special? Putting it at the beginning, to me, implies that this is supposed to be a musical. So I was a little let down by that. Another thing I didn't exactly love was the special being split into 3 parts. It was a choice, and I don't think I would have went with it myself. With part 1 being dedicated to Timmy getting the muffin, then losing it, part 2 being dedicated to Chimpsdale, and part 3 dedicated to Crocker being in control, getting beaten, then wrapping up the story. This leads to the special feeling more like 3 short stories than one cohesive long special, like Channel Chasers or School's Out the Musical. It also felt like the Crocker being in control portion of the story as well as the climax were extremely rushed, even compared to other parts of the special. It felt like an anticlimactic ending that barely even happened. The main climax of the story was Timmy having to reveal that he has fairies to his parents, then the fairies getting taken away. So Timmy being able to just wish that everyone on planet Earth forgets he has fairies kind of defeats the purpose of the climax. It makes it not exciting at all. And when it really boils down to it, it feels like the story was Timmy gets the muffin, Timmy loses the muffin, Timmy gets the muffin back, Timmy loses the muffin again, Timmy gets the muffin back for real, and the special ends. But to be a bit more positive for a little bit, my favorite part of the special was probably the introduction where they were going through a few old nostalgic movie scenes. It was super fun, it caught my attention, and made the special feel like a Channel Chasers sequel for a second, which that would have been dope. Imagine if we got a Channel Chasers sequel where they went through a ton of movies instead of TV shows. Another thing I liked about the special was a glimpse into Timmy being kind to other living creatures, which is not usually shown on the series. When Timmy frees Bippy so he can have fun in the food fight, it shows that he was thinking of someone other than himself. Timmy is usually seen to be selfish, so it was nice to see him give some love to some of the animals. He also lured Crocker away from the classroom to save all the children from being murdered, so that's also pretty selfless too. I liked that. And one final little touch I did like about the special was Timmy's parents showing some self-awareness. I personally feel like Timmy's parents can be very psychopathic towards him and not even want him to be alive, if we're being honest. So to see them so obsessive over all the times they lied to Timmy was a nice change. But I do think that they were still doing it to just relieve themselves of guilt rather than to make Timmy feel better. But overall, I think Abra-Catastrophe just didn't grip me the way the other Fairly Odd Parents specials have. The plot kept moving, but I wasn't really invested in it. The story was stretched too thin across multiple conflicts, and the decision to split it into 3 parts didn't really pay off in my opinion. If I had to rank this one, I would definitely put it below Channel Chasers and the first Jimmy Timmy Power Hour. It pains me to say that because I have a lot of nostalgia for this special, but honestly, it's one that I think you can skip without missing too much. Can you believe it's been 20 years since Fairly Odd Parents Channel Chasers premiered? That's right, Channel Chasers premiered in 2004, and since part of the movie takes place 20 years in the future, i.e. right now, I figured what better time than now to go back and see. Does Channel Chasers still hold up? Let's take a look. The movie starts showing us a scene 20 years into the future, and adult Chester and adult AJ are fighting off some masked man chasing them down. They're trying to get a component to AJ's house, but they're caught, and the masked man is not letting them go. Chester punches the shit out of him so AJ can get away, but the masked man sends his hoverboard drone thing after AJ. He then laser traps Chester, and the hoverboard follows AJ all the way back to his house. The drone turns into a TV screen, confronts AJ in his own home, then freezes him remotely. Vicky shows up, and it's shown the masked man is working alongside her. What a traitor. Vicky takes the belt and takes over the the entire world. Back to present day. Vicky is dreaming about murdering Timmy in different ways, and the news segment on her TV is discussing how TV is causing kids to do stupid, violent things by imitating things they see on TV. It's then revealed through a news broadcast that Timmy is attacking the city in a giant spaceship, completely terrorizing these innocent civilians because he saw something like it on a TV show. What the hell, Timmy? He eventually ruins his dad's chance at winning cleanest office of the year, and he also ruins his mother's $1 million real estate deal. That's not good. That's not good. The masked man time traveled back and is trying to track down Timmy while all these shenanigans ensue. Timmy's parents are rightfully pissed at him, and he doesn't seem to give a rat's ass. All he can do is watch TV and completely ignore his parents. So they decide to switch it to the Dictator channel. What kind of channel is that? Well, what? Timmy gets grounded, and the parents instantly bring Vicky over to babysit because they are going out for a night of fun. Timmy pleads with his parents. Please, he says. Vicky is evil, but they simply don't believe him, and they leave anyway. Vicky tries to murder Timmy immediately as soon as the door closes, and Timmy locks himself in his room, and his fairies say he ought to listen to his parents and actually not watch TV. But Timmy ignores Wanda and Cosmo and asks for a magic TV remote so he can go inside the TV instead. Therefore, he's not technically watching TV, and he's not breaking any rules. What a little dickbag. Timmy immediately takes his new remote, jumps into the TV, and leaves his fairies behind. He's literally channel surfing now, and he complains that the remote only has a channel up and channel down button, so he's gonna have to go one by one. Timmy starts out at channel 1, which is a ripoff of the Jetsons, known as the Futurellis. He heads to a pizza joint to hassle some of the local patrons, and then heads on out to channel 2, which is Carpet Critters, also known as the Rugrats. And they look so goddamn ugly. I think they're actually ridiculous looking. The babies are all just drooling and doing gross shit, and it seems Timmy is the only sentient baby, which makes it even creepier. Timmy shits himself, then wanders off to channel 3, which is Heavy Hal, which is a play on Fat Albert. Timmy starts playing the Pooper Scooper, and he is extremely unimpressed and instantly wants to leave. He heads to channel 4. Meanwhile, Vicky wants to check on Timmy in his room, and Cosmo tries to just murder her on the spot. Wanda decides that's not the best move and turns Cosmo into Timmy. Cosmo, disguised as Timmy, instantly strips and throws his clothes at Vicky, asking her to get out because he's naked, but Vicky chooses instead to take a child porn pic. What's she gonna do with this pic? Vicky, that's wrong. The masked man finds Timmy's house, but he's not much of a problem. He just gets blinded and falls out of a tree and doesn't really do anything right here. During all this, Vicky is inside vandalizing the Turner's home and actually calling Timmy's parents to blame it all on him. And meanwhile, Timmy made it to the channel that is playing Johnny Hunt, a play on Johnny Quest. Timmy pauses and erases a giant robot about to kill them all while he's here, and they give Timmy a giant gun as a reward, and he pieces out back to the real world. Once in the real world, Timmy gets careless when being confronted by his parents, drops the bazooka he got from the TV show, and blows the entire roof off of his house. He's a terrorist, confirmed. After all this, Cosmo and Wanda tell Timmy he has to be smarter and more mature because they won't be around forever. It's then revealed that Timmy will lose his fairies and forget they ever existed when he grows up. After blowing the roof off his parents' house, Timmy is rightfully grounded. His mom takes the magic remote out from his hands and gives it to Vicky. Timmy's dad actually tries to use Timmy's bazooka to blow up his neighbor's house, but it's out of bullets. That's still attempted murder. Timmy claims he didn't wreck the house, but of course his parents don't believe him, and Vicky gets away with it scot-free. After they all leave, Vicky sneaks back in to snap another picture of Timmy while he's crying because she loves how miserable he looks. Sadistic. After all of this, Timmy decides he wants to live in the TV world forever, where he never has to grow up and he never has to lose his fairies. He wishes for a second remote just before the masked man can get to him, and Timmy leaves a goodbye note for his family, then goes into the TV while sucking the masked man in with him. The masked man ends up in the Strawberry Shortcake channel, and he is not impressed. He tries to defend himself from the freaks, and Timmy ends up going to a different channel, the Peanuts, also known as Chucky Black. While there, Timmy gets the cops called on him for an assault he didn't commit, and they gas him out, so he ends up in a new channel, Space Vector, where they're fighting in space. They get sucked out of their spaceship into the blackness of space and actually fly into the masked man's invisible ship. The masked man reveals that he knows who Timmy is, and then he starts to suck them up into his ship. Meanwhile, Vicky uses the remote she stole from Timmy to control her TV at home home and accidentally merges two TV shows together. She then looks at the TV guide and sees that it changes in the real world to represent the TV show that she merged together. She then finds a game show and accidentally sucks herself into the TV to be on the game show. They tell her she can't compete because she's only 16 and she needs to be 18, so she uses the remote to fast forward her life 2 years to become 18 years old and win $1 million. And then her new goal instantly becomes going to Dictator Week on the Biographical channel and altering history to be the leader of the entire world. Meanwhile, Timmy and his fairies use the remote to change the channel right before they're sucked up by the masked man and they end up in the Flintstones, also known as the Meat Flints. They're all chased by a tiger. The masked man instantly shows up and they change the channel as quick as they can. They switch into Speed Racer and Timmy must race in this race, but the masked man shows up, steals a car, and now they're both in the race. While they're driving, the masked man keeps begging Timmy to just pull over so they can talk, but Timmy refuses and proceeds to ruin an entire ecosystem. What the hell, Timmy? Timmy wins the race and he's ready to move on and goes to the next channel, which is Snooper Dog and the Clue Crew, also known as Scooby-Doo. The crew is driving around without a license and they run into a Yeti who comes out and tries to kill every single one of them. One chase sequence later and they capture the Yeti and it ends up being the masked man. That's a double mask. Timmy gets thrown into the TV, switching channels, and the masked man dives in after him. Meanwhile, Timmy's parents are asking around to see if anyone has seen him. Chester tries to admit that Vicky is evil, but he is under surveillance and keeps getting electrocuted every time he tries to admit it. Timmy's parents don't give a single shit and they just leave like nothing happened. Back in TV land, Timmy ends up in Blackbird and Sparrow, which is a play on Batman and Robin. The masked man shows up, dives on top of Timmy, and just goes to town on him. The masked man finally has his mask taken off and reveals that he is older Timmy Turner from the future. Timmy is extremely upset because he's not supposed to get older. This future version of him shouldn't exist at all. Then Timmy pauses his future self with the remote and wonders who the bad guy in the movie is, if the masked man is actually a good guy. Cut to Vicky. Timmy starts interrogating his future self, and future Timmy explains that his world is ruled by Vicky, the dictator. He was in the resistance, but only to gain Vicky's trust to betray her. Vicky ordered him to go back in time, find younger Timmy, and basically kill him so he couldn't stop Vicky from becoming the dictator of the world. Pretty crazy. Timmy refuses to help because he's not gonna grow up, so it's not his problem anyway, and he doesn't give a shit. You could see how he's like his parents. During the conversation, Vicky shows up and starts to attack both Timmys. Vicky runs to the next channel like a pussy, and the Timmys give chase. Meanwhile, Timmy's parents are still trying to find him. They're asking Vicky's parents if Vicky is evil, and they're forced at gunpoint to lie. Vicky's sister Tootie notices Timmy's parents leaving her house looking unhappy, and then someone chucks a Timmy doll at the parents from their car, saying to meet them in 30 minutes to get information about Timmy. Signed, Deep Toot. During all this, Vicky and Timmy end up in Clint's Hints, which is a play on Blue's Clues. There's a human being in there hassling the Timmys, and that's just terrible. I hate that. They move on to the next channel, which is a Tom and Jerry type cartoon. The place is trashed, so they know Vicky's already been there. She sneaks up behind them. She's trying to hammer them to death, but the Timmys end up destroying Vicky, and they censor all the violence essentially. It's played for a joke, but whatever. Vicky flies through a TV to the next channel, and the crew goes right after her. They end up in a Bugs Bunny type cartoon and then instantly leave to move on to the next channel, which seems to be some type of family Rudolph Christmas special. They're all fucking around in Santa's workshop, and a bunch of reindeer fly by and poop all over them. Absolutely disgusting. A snowman comes to life and is instantly murdered by the Timmys, and while all this happens, older Timmy is busy reminiscing over watching this Christmas special, the one that they're in, with his parents. Older Timmy and younger Timmy share memories about their parents together, and young Timmy starts to wonder if his parents even know that he's gone. During all this, Timmy's parents are actually meeting with Deep Toot to try to find Timmy. Deep Toot is Vicky's younger sister, if that wasn't obvious, and she has pictures of Vicky trashing the Turner's house to prove it wasn't even Timmy who did it. She disappears right in front of his parents, and they want to find Timmy to apologize right away. They know wherever where he is that he's for sure watching TV, so they know they need to get on TV. Back in TV land, the whole crew's in a show that looks like The Simpsons, and Vicky is messing with a nuclear power plant. Timmy can't find any useful adults to help, and Vicky spills toxic waste all over the goddamn city. Both of the Timmys end up escaping through a TV before the toxic waste can kill them. Now they switch to a show that looks like Sesame Street, and the puppets are absolutely insane. They instantly leave this world, rightfully so. Oh my god. Them going through the actual TV set is crazy looking. The gang ends up in the credits for a show called Karate Cows, which is a play on Ninja Turtles, and as the credits roll, it's bringing them into the show that Timmy was watching at the beginning of the movie, Mahu Mushi. Vicky pops up in the credits and starts shooting at our two Timmys, and older Timmy gets in the way of a bullet to save younger Timmy. When older Timmy was shot, his time travel belt was broken, which caused him to go back to present day very slowly. As adult Timmy is ripped back to the present, he inspires younger Timmy to change the future just before he disappears. Timmy gets extremely fucking pissed off because Vicky ruins every single thing in his life that he likes, and he's not gonna let her ruin anything else. They both go into Mahu Mushi, and it's about to be crazy. Meanwhile, Timmy's parents are at the Dimmadome Cable Company asking to get on the air to apologize to Timmy. Doug Dimmadome babbles incoherently, and the parents just sneak past him and start a live broadcast to all of cable. How do they do that? During all this, Timmy and Vicky are about to have a sick-ass Maho Mushi fight to the death, because it's now or never. The next channel is the Dictator channel, and they need to stop Vicky here. Vicky reveals she's actually a huge fan of Maho Mushi because it's where she learns all of her babysitting torture techniques, so she's gonna be an admirable opponent for Timmy. They fight for a while, they use the remotes to pump themselves up with roids, and then they fight a little bit more. Timmy ends up realizing that as long as Vicky has his magical remote, that he'll always be as strong as her and that he can never beat her. Timmy decides to start using the age up button on his remote to age himself slowly so he can forget his fairies, and Vicky loses the magic of the magic remote and he can beat her, which I think is really good growth for Timmy. He realizes that no matter how badly he wants to keep his fairies, the only way to move forward is by forgetting them. He ages past 16 and 17 and still has his fairies, which is pretty impressive, but as soon as he ages up to 18, the remote loses power and Timmy loses his memory. His fairies start to get called away by a taxi cab, and Vicky is about to curb stomp Timmy while he sits confused on the floor. Wanda tells Cosmo to quickly poof Timmy back to a younger age so he can remember his fairies and they don't have to get taken away forever. He makes Timmy too young by accident, Timmy shits himself, and then Cosmo corrects the mistake and turns him into the right age. Just before Vicky kills Timmy, both of his remotes regain power. He pauses her, erases her memory, then fucking deletes her. Vicky is shot out of her TV and thinks it was all just a crazy dream. A Timmy doll is thrown through her window telling her to call the Turners and that she's fucking dead. During all this, Timmy's fairies are still getting pulled into the taxi cab. Timmy thinks fast and chucks the remote at the cab door to shut it, and the taxi driver decides that enough is enough and leaves without taking the fairies. They hug to celebrate, and then they start to make their way out of the TV. While they're channel surfing out of the TV, Timmy realizes that he only grew up into the cool person he does because his parents raised him the way they did, and he wants to respect them more now. While he's having this realization, he sees them live broadcasting on TV and watches their apology. They're sorry they didn't believe him and beg him to come home. Timmy just goddamn materializes out of the TV right in front of his parents, and they're happy to see him with no questions asked. Aren't they confused how the fuck he came out of the TV? The whole family heads back home and they begin interrogating Vicky until they end up firing her. Timmy then pauses everyone in the house because he decided that he only got his fairies because of Vicky, and he wants to keep them around for as long as he can, so he wants to keep Vicky around to ensure he'll always be miserable. He then wishes that the remotes never existed in the first place and that everyone involved forgets the entire thing happening. Timmy then goes out back and buries a time capsule with a picture of him and his fairies in fish form to remember this adventure he went on with them. Cut to 20 years in the future, and adult Timmy's kids are out back digging up the time capsule. Timmy looks at the slightly altered picture of him and his fish and ponders for a moment before moving on. This moment always stuck with me as a pretty heartfelt, sad moment, I'm not gonna lie. Timmy decides it's time to go to work and leaves his kids to be babysat by Robot Vicky, showing he's no better than his own parents. And after this, the credits start to roll. So after all the channels have been chased, after everything is said and done, I still think Channel Chasers holds up. The journey Timmy goes on is a timeless one. A lot of people can relate to feeling annoyed at their parents for how controlling they can be. And a lot of people also go through the growth of learning that their parents have their best interest in mind and that they should respect them more. It's also just a fun concept to see someone surfing through TV in a literal sense, going from channel to channel, trying out different worlds. I think it's just an interesting movie, all things considered. I definitely recommend you give this a watch or a rewatch whenever you get the chance. Alright, thanks for listening.